Well, what a morning for England. It's supposed to be a happy day and an Independence day of cricket for India. As it turns out, it's three wickets and three big ones. Rahul gone, Rohit gone, Kohli gone. It should make for a compelling conversation at lunch on day four of the Lord's Test on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. VVS Laxman is here. Laxman, very happy Independence Day to you. Stephen, we're supposed to be celebrating 75 years away from you lot, but the conversation's all about England this morning.
Yeah, it is, and happy Independence Day to everyone. And it's honest, what a session it is for England. It couldn't have gone any better. We might get a game finished today, and we might not have to go into day five and worry about any sort of rain whatsoever. I couldn't have gone any better. I did say I did say yesterday I'd like Mark Wood to get a ball early in the piece with a new ball because of the amount of time India have had in the field and tired bodies overnight, heavy legs. Is there's sort of any sort of indecision, and if you've got somebody that bowls 90 mile an hour, 90 plus mile an hour with a brand new ball, you've got half a chance of maybe getting somebody to make a mistake. And boy, they did. It was a good ball to get Rahul, but what was Rohit Sharma doing? I'm not. Literally, they've just. You can see the game stopped, and they moved the fielder from backward point all the way out up the hill. Took him a minute and a half, 2 minutes, Tom Sibley, to get out to deep backward square in front of square. Then you had Moeen Ali behind square. Then you've got a fine leg. As good a player as Rohit Sharma is, I think he's dropped his team right in it there and put under pressure because India was still just behind in deficit.
Might we then just straight away go into that discussion, Lakshman? It seems to be the big talking point of that session, the Rohit Sharma wicket. What was your reaction when you saw it?
Yeah, I think definitely he has let down himself. More than the team, I think he's let down himself because we've seen him getting out in that fashion just before lunch in the first test at Nottingham. Sometimes your favorite stroke which is very productive can lead to your downfall. In the very same over, he got a beautiful six over fine leg. And when the opposition captain, makes the change, it's very clear that that is the line of attack, and that's something which they want Rohit Sharma to do or play. So it was a trap for Rohit Sharma, and unfortunately he fell into that trap. He's a much better player, much more experienced player than probably what we saw with that short selection. Because it was very important, especially when Rahul got out early on. And then it was so important for Rohit Sharma, the way he was batting, some beautiful drives, he was timing the ball really well. He was coming behind the line of the ball. His feet were moving really well. And Indian team and Rohit Sharma had to play, at least till lunch, and carry on the form which has shown in the Test series so far. So very disappointed with that short selection from Rohit Sharma.
Yeah, I guess that is the debate, isn't it? It's going to rage now. Was the shot on? Was the hook shot or the pull shot on? Let's just talk about the shot itself. We know Rohit Sharma plays it well, better than most in international cricket, Lakshman. We talk about batters playing instinctively. Now, is the pull shot or the hook shot, justified for a batter because, it's like any other shot that he'd think he plays well? Or is there a difference when it comes to the pull shot or the hook shot given the risk involved?
Well, any shot, if a batsman knows when to play, is justifiable. And that is why I'm saying that if there were no fielders back, or if that was not the game plan of the opposition team, then you can go out and play your shots, and that's supposed to be happening because Rohit Sharma or any stroke player, a natural stroke player, would want to play shots. Only then can he put pressure back on the bowlers. Only then can he score and keep the scoreboard ticking. But when the opposition team is planning to get you out in that fashion, want to set a trap to get you out, and that is where you have to have other options, and I feel not only as an opener, but when you're batting at the highest level, especially in test match cricket, when there are two bouncers allowed in an over, there are two fielders who can be set behind square leg, and it is very important to know when to leave the ball and when to play your pull shot or when to play your hook shot. So I just feel that after getting a six, after hitting that beautiful six, it was very clear that the need of the hour was to just let the ball go. And if you see the line of the ball, it was way outside the leg stump. It was way outside the leg stump. It was also not, towards his body or not hitting the helmet. So Rohit Sharma would have easily left the ball alone, and it would have caused a damage, which it has done now. Suddenly, a lot of pressure is on the other batsmen, and we know that Pujara is not amongst runs. We know Virat Kohli is not amongst runs, and so is Rahane, and India, as it is playing one batsman short in this match. So I think a lot of responsibility should have been taken by Rohit Sharma, and that's why he'll be disappointed with the option he has chosen.
Yeah, just because of that, the last bit of what you said, before I come to you, Steve, you can allow me one more question to Lakshman on the pull. What distinction would you advise making for the pull or the hook to be played safely or efficiently, Lakshman? When you talk about line, can you easily bifurcate that? Yeah, if it's a roundabout off stump, which is where he hit those sixes, or outside off, I'm likely to be better in control. And similarly on length as well, if it's going to be around shoulder height, I can take it. If it's above shoulder, I won't be able to control it. Is that easy, or how challenging is it to make that judgment as a batter, especially when you're
Yeah,
facing Mahmood?
yeah. Firstly, the length, and I always feel that any ball which is above your shoulder high, I think it is very difficult to control. Especially if you have two fielders or three fielders back, waiting for you to play that shot. You will never be in control. And the second thing is the way Rohit Sharma get into position to play that pull shot. Ideally you want the bat to come over the top of the ball, and you're in total control. And even though the fielders are out there in the deep, you can still hit the ball into the ground. But the position Rohit Sharma gets, and that's his strength. Please don't misunderstand me. That is his strength, and he's hit a lot of sixes against the best of bowlers in tough conditions or challenging conditions for batting. But his bat is always underneath the ball, so majority of the time the ball is going to go in the air. This is something which we discussed even in Nottingham. So with that field setting, if the line was on the off stump, outside the off stump, you could still go ahead and hit the ball in front and probably over mid wicket or right of mid on, because that's a safe option. But once you know that there is a deep square leg which is behind the umpire and also in front of the umpire, so there are two fielders there. Sibley, in front of the umpire, and then behind the square leg umpire, and then there's a fine leg. Anything which is into your body, it is very difficult to control that shot, however good you may have timed that shot. So I think that is why I think the length he picked up, I think it was little high, and also the line was into his body, and more often than not, you're going to end up giving the catch to the fielder who is set for that very short.
All right. Now, I don't know how many batters would admit it. I guess very few would, Steve. But as a bowler, sometimes do you think that in particular is a bit of an ego shot, that they will take it on?
Yeah, it is an ego shot, but it's a shot that if you play well and you can put the pressure straight back on the bowler, because the bowler is bowling a short ball because he thinks that's aggression. I'm going to show you what I can do. And the best player I've ever seen or played against do it was Ricky Ponting. And Ricky pulled you off the front foot. He hit you in front of square, or he hit you and he went for six. And as a bowler, you're thinking, sure, am I going to bowl now? Because he's driven me straight down the ground. He's pulled me for four or for six. And then all of a sudden, the bowler's on the back foot, scratching his head, thinking, where do I go next? So, but I think England have had some joy with this ball with Sharma. That's twice now in 4 innings that England have got him. And credit to the bowler, Mark Wood, because he bowled a short ball. I think it was a second or third ball of the over, and Rowett's pulled it for six. He's bowled a short ball, a really quick, high short ball, next ball. Rowett got into a great position, got himself there just as it was too high, got to a position, then all of a sudden, straight out the way and left it. I thought, that's good. This is going to be a good contest. And then, the one down leg side, he's just helped it round the corner. The shot, yes, I'll have a go at, but it was actually the in-between balls. Dom Sibley's gone from backward point and he's walked across the crease past Rohit Sharma. So Rohit Sharma's not being told by the non-striker, oh, look, by the way, he's moved 10 yards. He's actually gone right in front of him, walked across the crease, gone over to the man outside, out in the deep. So the game has stopped. Rohit Sharma can see it and he's fallen into the trap. And I think that's what I'd be critical of. But credit to the bowler, credit to the captain for going with this plan. And Rohit will be disappointed on how his innings ended.
Just on that roundup, as a batsman, you cannot have ego when you're out there in the middle of the competition, especially when you know that your team is struggling. I mean, there's no doubt once KL Rahul got out early, it was on Rohit Sharma to build an innings and put pressure back on the English bowlers. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, there's no better batsman than Sachin Tendulkar, in my opinion. I mean, he's been a genius. Probably the best I've seen since I followed the game. And I still remember that double hundred he scored at SCG. I mean, Sachin Tendulkar could have easily played a cover drive after he got to his 50 or after he got his high in. but he decided he's not going to play that shot. And he, not once in that entire innings of 241 did he play a shot through the cover region, even though part-timers like Simon Katic or Damien Martin were bowling. And that is the kind of control you require, especially when you know that that is your strength and you know that that is also going to be leading to your downfall. In this instance, after hitting that six and the reaction of Joe Root after Rohit Sharma's dismissal sums it up. That as if captain is so happy that the plan which they had, and this plan was suddenly not decided in that nick of moment. It was well planned much before this inning started, especially when Markwood came into bowl. And I think one of the reasons Markwood came into bowl was to trap Rohit Sharma with this short pitch delivery. And I think the celebration of Joe Root sums it up. Very clear that the plan worked in his favor, and he got a very important wicket of a set batsman, an in-form batsman. So sometimes you just have to let go your ego. And I don't think that as a batsman, instincts. You have to play to the situation and you have to play to the field which is set by the opposition captain and bowler.
Yep. Well, it didn't work for Rohit Sharma today. The debate will linger on. It won't be the last short ball you see bowled to Rohit Sharma in this long series. So let's see how things go after. He's been dismissed twice in 2 tests already with the short pitch ball. It was Markwood's second wicket. Let's talk about his first. KL Rahul has left so well, Laxman, in this series. What happened there?
I think he was just beaten by just the seam movement and the pace of Markwood, because what was very evident was there was uneven bounce when Markwood came and started to bowl. Right from the start of the day, I thought there was uneven bounce. And when there is uneven bounce, you want to tend to play at every ball. I just felt that KL Rahul, against what he has shown in the Test series so far, it just felt that he took the bat away from his body. Almost that happens when you're looking to play at each and every ball. And unfortunately, that is what England wanted at the start of the innings. And KL Rahul, if he looks back at that dismissal, he would be thinking that so far in this series, my bat was very close to the body, and I was seeing where the ball was going. I knew where my off stump was, even though there was a late movement off the wicket or in the air. I was looking to leave the ball. Whereas today, I got committed to play that shot, and that's why he got out, and that's why that led to his dismissal.
Steve, is this this seems like a different surface from what we saw on day 3.
Yeah, there has been a little bit of uneven bounce. It's got lower more than anything else. It hasn't really spat and gone high, which from an England point of view, I think that's good, because Wood's not very tall, Anderson's not very tall, and Sam Curran's not very tall. So if it's going to go along the floor, they're the sort of bowlers that would make it just skid on a little bit. The KL Rahul one, again, keep harping on throughout this test match about the slope. When you bowl at the nursery end, Mark Wood bowls wide of the crease, and when you watch Mark Wood bowling wide of the crease, as a batsman, the ball's coming up at you, and then it hits the surface and goes and deviates and goes away. And then because of the slope, it just goes that little bit further. So because of Mark Wood's angle, he drags you into play, because you feel as though, well, this ball's got to be coming at, because it's coming at me. You think, right, I've got to play this, even though it's in and around off stump. As soon as it jags, you get drawn into having to go with the ball. I think that's the beauty about the skiddier bowlers bowling from the nursery end. Darren Gough did it. Simon Jones, when I played with Simon Jones, the amount of people he nicked off early in their innings, because you get drawn into playing the skiddy ball that you think, and it's 90 mile an hour, so you haven't got much time to react. I thought it was good, skillful bowling by Mark Wood against a batsman who's in decent form. It looks as though he shouldn't have played at it, same with Virat Kohli, but a couple of balls earlier, he had left and he just got dragged into play. And I think credit to the bowler on that one.
All right, so setup seems the way for both wickets. Let's talk about the setup for Virat Kohli's as well. Sam Curran with an LBW appeal of the previous ball, which is the last ball of his previous over, and then seems like he dragged Kohli or sucked Kohli into playing for the one that's coming in. Steve, take me through the setup and what's caused Kohli's downfall.
Yeah, well, Sam's got it going back into the right-hander, which he didn't in the first innings, and he looked pretty innocuous. And because Sam's not very tall, he's about 5'8", 5'7", 5'8", 80 mile an hour, and if it doesn't swing, he's quite nice to face. But when it does swing, it's a different ball game altogether. And you chuck in the slope there, the one that he got Virat Kohli out, playing away from his body. In isolation, you think you shouldn't have played at it, but actually 3 or 4 balls before the huge LBW appeal, I thought it was out. I must admit, I'm giving it. Because it's Virat Kohli, like Joe Root, the captain has decided, yes, he's too important of a player. We've got to DRS this, because I actually thought it was closer than going over the stumps. But because he's got the ball coming back, the one that just slides across just makes the batsman play. It's very, very difficult to play left arm seamer when he's got a little bit of shape back in. I thought, again, a very, very good bit of set of bowling by somebody who is, he's not really been in the test match so far. He got naught first ball with the bat, looked innocuous with the ball in the first innings, but actually this has just kicked his game into gear. That LBW appeal, he's captain backed him, and all of a sudden he's got the prize wicket of Virat Kohli. So, good on Sam Curran.
Lakshman, you have observed on this show before when we're discussing this Kohli's technique in this tour that there is an extra bit of shuffle which you're not quite happy with. It reminds you more of 2014 than of 2018. Is that also a case in his wicket today?
Yeah, a couple of times, but I just felt that it was much better compared to the first innings or the first test also. I think instead of the right leg almost ending up on the off stump, I think it was ending on off and middle, and that's something which is critical for Virat Kohli, especially for him to know where his off stump is. But I think it was a great piece of bowling because Virat Kohli was looking very positive. I think the intent right from the word go in his foot movement, in his body language was where he wanted to put pressure back on the bowlers. And he was looking to be aggressive and very positive at the crease. And that's why I think if you see his feet movement or his feet position, it was almost for the ball which was going to come in, and I think he was almost expecting the ball to come in, and then from there, the ball just held its line. And sometimes if the bowler is not as quick as you want him to be, you're forced to take the bat towards the ball. If it would have been a little quicker, probably more another 5 kilometers per hour, then probably it would have been a ball which would have left his bat. And I think because he's slow, he's almost forcing Virat Kohli to play at the ball. But the setup was brilliant. Because Sam Curran was getting the ball into the right-hand batsman, Virat Kohli was always looking for that in-swinger. And that's what you get with Sam Curran, because I'm not even sure whether Sam Curran knows sometimes that the ball is angling away from the right-hander. While if you see his wrist position, if you see the seam position, the ball is almost aimed at hitting the pads of the right-hand batsman. But I thought Virat Kohli was looking much more assured today than probably what he did in the previous 3 innings.
All right, but there is a large yes, Steve, you got something.
Sorry, just to go on Kohli, I thought he was brilliant. He came out and had a fight with Jimmy Anderson. It was like, right, I'm coming out. He picked a fight with Jimmy, and it was like, right, this is proper Test match cricket. Umpires didn't get involved. Just the umpire was chuckling a little bit. It was 2 great warriors going head to head, and Anderson didn't back down. Kohli didn't back down, and I thought it was compelling half an hour of cricket. And I actually think Virat Kohli's actually come out to do that. He's thinking, right, I'm going to pick a fight with Anderson. I'm going hard at him because I'm going to get me going. And I thought he just looked a bit in touch. He had a couple of fours, and it was excellent Test match. It was Test match cricket at its best for me. 2 very, very good sort of strong characters, not backing down. 2 greats of the game, going hard at each other. And I think Virat wanted that because I think it was just to get his innings going, to get him going. So it was enjoyable. Some people will say, is it in the spirit of the game? It is. It is very much so. You don't back down or anything. I think that was compelling Test match cricket. It didn't cross the line, and it was a joy to watch.
Well, this takes us into our match day spotlight discussion quite nicely because we'd set up today to just discuss India's middle order woes in the last year or so in Test cricket. Virat Kohli's wicket, maybe we can start with him. Pujara and Rane at the crease, they've found form hard to come by of late. And we discussed what ails 3 players that have been the run machine, the engine room for runs in Test cricket for India in the last few years. We'll break down the numbers for you first up. And let's just, we can bring out just their numbers in 2021. Kohli, Rahane and Pujara. It's not numbers that make for pretty viewing. But let's start one by one. Laxman, Virat Kohli, not numbers that we're used to seeing of him. This is in 2021. He's got just over 200 runs at an average of a little over 22. Can you identify a pattern? Can you identify a reason for Kohli's blip in form, Laxman?
Well, I think there's not much of a pattern, because if you see these nine innings, what I remember, I think 4 of them came in New Zealand, where the conditions were definitely in favor of the seam bowlers. Then I think Adelaide was a lone test match he played in that Australia series where I thought he was batting well, but unfortunately he got run out in the first innings when he was on 60 or 65. And then second innings when India were bowled out for 36, he got out early. And then when England came to India, they were ranked turners, But having said that, by the standards or the benchmark which Virat Kohli himself has set for himself, I think the way he has performed at the highest level, consistently scoring hundreds, conversion rate has been great, especially since that dreadful series in 2014. I think it has been a very poor average last 1.5 years for Virat Kohli. And I think if at all, one thing which I can think about is even in New Zealand, even in the World Test Championship final and at Nottingham, you could see him going at the balls which are probably on the fourth or fifth stump. Because even in New Zealand, I remember he was out to Jamieson when the ball was almost on the fifth stump. And I think the only reason I can see is the kind of trigger or the kind of shuffle he has had since the New Zealand series. Because before that, I just feel that he was much better balanced while moving and his head was much still. So I think that is one reason, because if you see a majority of his dismissal have been in that channel or the corridor of uncertainty. And against spinners, I thought in India, every ball had your name written on it, especially the last 3 test matches. It was a placid wicket in Chennai, but after that, I think it was a tough batting wicket for both the teams.
We're talking about Virat Kohli. As you know, he's one of the all-time greats, Steve. He's one of the few modern-day batters who average over 50, even now, in spite of this run of poor scores. We've not seen this before. From what you've seen of him, can you explain it?
I think there's a couple of factors here. I think the bowling attacks that he's had to come up against. New Zealand was you couldn't the game you couldn't detect which was the outfield and which was the wicket, and that is always very much in the bowler's favour, the bowler's favour. Best ranked team in the world with one of the best bowling attacks going around. And I think the same when you went back to India. I think the surfaces weren't really batter friendly; they were more in favour of the ball. In Australia, look, I'm a father of 4, and when you are on a tour, and I've been in Australia while my wife's expecting and giving birth. I think that was what was happening with Virat, and that's why he went home. So his mind might have been on other things, and he's a human being. He's not a robot, even though some of the innings that he's played and the stats that show that you'd think he is a robot. So people go through poor spells. It's the challenge that coming out the other side of it. I just think that so far this year in 2021, the ball has outweighed the bat in favour in the surfaces that have been played. But you can never keep great players down, and Virat Kohli will come good. Hopefully not in this series when India are back in India or not on the British Isles. But I just think sometimes you can play against very, very good bowling, and then the pressure that comes with that when you do start having extra moving parts, you do go chasing balls because you haven't had a score in the last game. I think sometimes you just have to strip things back, go back to basics, and hopefully earn the element of luck you need to see through an indifferent passage to make an ugly score. And I think that's what he probably needs. You've seen so many times Virat Kohli getting a beautiful 100. Maybe he just needs an ugly 100, whatever that could be from Virat. An ugly 100 just to get him over the line, just to kick him back into gear.
One thing, Raunak, if I can add, when I think why Virat Kohli is shuffling so much, if there's only one reason. It happened to a lot of us also. Once you're an established player, once you also are a very positive player and attacking aggressive batsman, majority of the times, a lot of overseas bowlers to the Indian batsmen, they don't want to bowl anything on his pads because they know that they're very strong. Whatever ball they're going to face, they are boundary hitters and they've got strong wrists and they can whip the ball right from off stump, from mid on till square leg. That's a talent the Indian batsmen have. So sometimes they play with the patience of the Indian batsmen and they try to just bowl on the fifth stump, on the sixth stump, almost drive down the scoring rate. So sometimes to get closer to the ball, you shuffle a lot more and backing yourself that whatever comes onto my stumps, I'm still confident enough to work the ball on the onside. So that may be the reason why he is shuffling a lot more than probably what he has done. So with that, it also means that he has to be a lot. If you would have probably strike rate of say 50 or 60 or maybe 70 sometimes in scoring those runs, now he has to be much more patient and, as Steve rightly mentioned, play that innings where you are forcing the bowler to change his line. And once that happens, someone like Virat Kohli is unstoppable. But at the moment, I think he's falling into the hands of the opposition bowlers and opposition captains' plan, where they're playing with his patience. Even in Wellington, the way he got out, even in Nottingham, the way he got out was a ball which he could have easily left. So I think that also can happen. It has happened in many of great Indian batsmen's career, and I've been I saw that firsthand. So that's why I think that is something which Virat Kohli requires to do. There is just a phase, and if he gets through this phase, again runs will come, hundreds will come at a very quick pace.
Yeah, so that's something which I think universally is the feeling which is different from Rahane and Pujara. There seems to be a struggle for Rahane and Pujara, and the Kohli impression seems to be he's one innings away from a little bit of form. Lakshman, firstly, would you agree with that? Would you believe, even though the numbers are similar, and it would show that Kohli struggled as much as Rahane and Pujara, if you just look at bare numbers in the last year or so, would you put him in the same boat as the other two, or is there a difference between Kohli's lack of runs and Pujara and Rahane's lack of runs?
There's a massive difference. And the reason why I say that is till the time Virat Kohli is at the crease, he looks almost invincible. It looks as if he's the one who's dictating terms. So I think, whereas if you see Pujara or if you see Rahane, Pujara over defensive sometimes, Rahane over aggressive sometimes. And both of them give an impression that any ball they can get out. Or they are not the ones who are dictating the terms. It's the bowlers who are actually on top of them. Whereas still the time Virat Kohli is on the crease, even in India on those ranked turners, he got a couple of 50s, or till the time he was on the crease, I felt that he was the one who was controlling the things. That's why I think while the numbers are same, while all three of them haven't performed to their potential, but Rahane and Pujara look under tremendous pressure whenever they're on the crease, but Virat
Yeah.
Kohli doesn't look the same.
You get that feeling as well if you're an opposition bowler from just what you've seen of these three, Steve?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like when Kohli comes out, even though he might be shuffling and he might be playing down the wrong line, he might look as though he's going to nick every ball. It's still Virat Kohli. He still has this aura about him. He still looks 7 foot tall. His bat looks wider than anybody else's. That's the perception you'd have when you're on the field. It's still this great player. You don't get that with Rahane. You don't get that with Pujara. You feel as though one cover drive or one hit the ball down the ground. He's back in. He's a bit of touch, and I think there's just a calmness when he does get going, that you just think, what, he's one innings away, or he's even 30 balls away of getting over that initial phase where he wants to get at the ball, and he will come good, and he could really take the game away from us. Not sure I'd get that with Rahane or with Pujara, or at this minute in time. I think England will always feel that even if they do bat for 30 balls, which Pujara did, I think he batted 31 balls to get off the mark. Even if he bats for 30 odd balls, he's not going to take the game away from us. And I think that's the mental perception you'd get when Virat's there. It's a completely different story. I can think of teams in the past played against. You look at, even during my early career, when I think Sachin had the elbow problem, and he wasn't as fluid as what he was earlier or later. And it's still Sachin Tendulkar. He's still running up, and yes, he's not very tall in stature, but he's still Sachin Tendulkar. That bat looks wide, and if he hits it, it stays hit. And you think, the modern day great players have this aura, and it transfers to the opposition and the field. But it works both ways, because if you knock over the great player, if you knock over, like Sam Curran did a lap of honour, it was like Imran Tahir when he got his hat trick the other day. He really did a lap of honour. He did a lap of honour because it was Virat Kohli. It means
Yeah.
everything to the opposition when they get that man out.
Right, gives you some perspective. If you're looking at the Indian middle order dilemma, as a group or together, it's perhaps a little more layered than that. But we'll show you the numbers as a group, and it doesn't make for good reading. You compare test teams and you look at the numbers that their 3, 4, and 5 have produced, and you don't expect India, who are World Test Championship finalists and one of the better teams in Test cricket since 2020, of course, since that terrible year of 2020 for the world, it's just not gone right for India. An average of 27.44 for 3, 4, and 5. And mind you, barring that series in Australia, it's been the same three. It's been Kohli, Pujara, Rahane. Kohli, of course, played only the one test in Adelaide on the Australia tour, and just the 100 between them. You can remember that one. That was Ajinkya Rahane at Melbourne. Let's look at some more numbers. Gives you some more perspective on how it's been for India's 3, 4, and 5. Middle order troubles continue to be a reason for perhaps India not doing as well as they would have liked to. They've still won a series in Australia. They won a home series in England, but that's in spite of the numbers not coming from the middle. We're looking at the lowest batting averages for numbers 3, 4, and 5 in tests, and you can see Virat Kohli features, Pujara features, and Ajinkya Rahane features again. Very, very unlike what we've expected of them in the past, but that's where they are. 25 and 27 for Pujara and Rahane, respectively. This couldn't have been more poetically timed. Pujara and Rahane not out going into the next session, Laxman, and perhaps there's no better chance to come back into form. But does added pressure in some ways help to get you back into the form, or is that just the worst possible situation to try and get some form?
No, it's the way a batsman looks at it. And I always felt that when the team requires runs from you, and there's no doubt that Indian team desperately requires both Pujara and Rahane and all the other batsmen to fire. Otherwise, I think they're going to lose this match. So sometimes when you're in this situation, suddenly you stop thinking about your personal form, your personal aspirations, your personal milestone, and suddenly your focus shifts to what the team requires, to the bigger picture. And it in fact works in your favor. Then you're not thinking about what has happened so far. You're thinking about being in the present. And that's exactly what I'm hoping that Rahane and Pujara will show. Because that kind of mindset sometimes works in favor of a batsman. So this pressure situation or this situation which the team is in will work in favor of Pujara and Rahane. But if they're thinking about their personal form, if they're thinking about this is a great opportunity for me to prove myself, then I think they're digging a hole for themselves. So I hope that they're going with a mindset where they're not thinking about their personal form. They're not thinking about what has happened so far leading into this innings. They're just going out and playing to the situation, and they know that it's not about my personal scope. It's about building a partnership and at least giving some kind of a scope for our bowlers to put pressure back on the England batsmen and hopefully win the game.
England need to go for blood now, Steve, don't they?
All them numbers and all them stats, England players will know, and England players will be reminding Ajinkya Rahane and Pujara in the middle. They'll be telling them, Suryakumar Yadav, they're on the way. Kishan's on his way. They're ready for you. They're going to come and take your place. And the England players will be telling. That's what happens in the middle. So that is another added mental approach you have to get over. But just looking at the numbers, the starts there. You see the average at the second bottom behind the West Indies, but 11 50s and 100. So 11 times 3, 4, and 5 have got to 50 and not gone on, and that for me is what would concern me, because if you convert maybe 4 more of them and it's you get 500s, the averages go up, the scores go up, and there's a good chance that you're going to win more cricket matches. So, and the confidence levels go. So it's not as though they're just getting out for 10 and 20 and 30. 11 times of getting to 50 and not gone on. And there's only one, like you said, Rahane went and got 100 in Melbourne. So that would concern me a little bit. But boy, will them England players be telling the Indian middle order they're not doing their job properly. And if they don't, they'll be out.
Well,
One thing, Ronak, is which I've already touched about is when you're talking about experienced players, we're not talking about a Prithvi Shaw or a Shubman Gill who are young in their career. We're talking about 3 out and out match winners who have done incredibly well for themselves and for the Indian team. And when you're talking about these players, you're not talking about just the outcome. You're talking about the way they're getting out. And that's why I mentioned that on seaming tracks, the way they're getting out is a lot of times, they're playing at the ball which should be left, and that's why they're getting out in the slip cordon or caught behind. And when they're playing against the turning ball or against the spinners, even there, I thought that their defense was tested. So these are the two things which are mandatory or which are very, very important if you have to score in India or in overseas condition. And all these three batsmen, especially Pujara and Rahane, have been found wanting in the last 1.5 years. They're repeating the same mistake, and the dismissal also is almost very repetitive, and that's something which is a cause of concern.
Right. Something tells me this is not the last of this conversation, and it should make for a fascinating tea time chat. Because if Pujara and Rahane bat till tea, that will make for a great chat. If they get dismissed, well, that should make for a
I
great
love
chat.
your comeback. I love your comeback, Ronald.
We will discuss that and put the hard questions to VVS Lakshman and Steve Harmison, who's got a big smile on his face with how England have dominated the last 4 sessions of this Test match. You'd think, but it's still a lot of cricket to be played. The middle session in this Test has yielded the least number of wickets for whatever it's worth. So let's see if that bodes in India's favour. The lead is still minuscule, if you want to look at it that way. It's just 29. We'll see how this middle session plays out. Join us again at tea on ESPN Cricket for Match Day to see where this Test stands.